This all comes down to how you were programmed as a child. It wasn't your fault, but it now is your fault because you're now an adult, so you have to take responsibility for it, regardless of the fact of whether you were conditioned right or not. It's like, well, as soon as you get 18 years old, it's now your fault.
You start to realize how things that happened or didn't happen in your childhood have unconsciously planted the seeds for what are now patterns in your life. Self as a computer. Brain right now is a computer that's running a bunch of programs. And if you don't like the reality that you see around you, you need to change your fucking operating system and upgrade your software. That's the only way to improve anything. It is all you. It's always been you.
Give me a strategy to shorten the sales cycle in business, because I want everyone on here to be able to shorten their sales cycle so they can bring in more cash as fast as possible so they can make more money.
The main thing is
guys, this is the beauty of running a podcast. Not everything goes to plan. Now, this week's podcast is with my friend Jack Delosa. He's the founder of the Entourage and many other 8-figure businesses that you all know and love. Now, we missed the first 10 minutes of this conversation due to audio difficulties, but I wanted to bring you the final 50 minutes as I think the insights within this conversation will be powerful in moving you forward on every level of the game. So enjoy the rest of our conversation. I've just asked Jack how he balances a relationship and business, and he's just about to go deep dive into that topic and unlock another door for you guys. So enjoy this conversation. Apologies for the first 10 minutes. Let's go.
Yes, exactly. And that's because I didn't yet realize that relationships, like anything else, was a skill. Wherever I have sort of made mistakes in life, or let's say not yet operating optimally, it's because I haven't yet done the work, the deliberate, conscious coaching, learning to better understand it. And so, you know, and I see this in a lot of people, in that a lot of people just live unconsciously, right? Like, they're just kind of on autopilot going through life, not realizing that everything in our reality is a reflection of us. And so if your health is bad, that's your fault. Unless it's a disease or something, obviously, that's not your fault. But when I say your health is bad, I mean, if you're not the weight that you want to be, you don't have the muscle you want to have, you don't have the energy you want to have, stop drinking alcohol, start eating less, start moving more. If your relationships aren't the way that you want, there's some stuff that you're doing or not doing that's causing that. If your business is coming up against a glass ceiling, it's because you're not yet the person that understands how to move it past that glass ceiling. If you don't know what the current constraint in your business is, you're the constraint. And so it's quite a challenging paradigm to adopt, because it's a bit inconvenient. It feels inconvenient at first. It's like, oh, fuck, you're telling me that
I'm the problem?
Yeah. And I mean, you figure that out, you know, over the years anyway. I just like to realize it sooner, which is, you know, like, I'm always the problem. And so if I can just kind of shortcut that understanding and get to doing the real work, which is always the work on yourself, then you accelerate your results in every aspect of life. Is it easy? No. For people like you and I, Frankie, and probably 90% of the people listening to this, is there an alternative for us? No.
It's the most painful thing to have to do the work, to see the shadows of yourself. And the thing about business and relationships, especially those two topics, they show the deepest, darkest shadow parts of yourself and everything. So if you got poor, if you were brought up in a family that was bad around money, you have these bad money habits, your business is going to have a bad financials. It's just natural. If you don't sort that out in your own life before you start a business, you will not have the cash on the balance sheet to be able to keep this thing going. So you might have a vehicle that's really successful, selling loads of product, but if you haven't got enough cash on the balance sheet to keep getting new orders, to keep funding this thing, you know how it goes. It ends up, you got all these orders and everyone thinks they're making money, but the CFO tells you you've got no cash in the bank. So this all comes down to how you're programmed as a child. So it's like, it's not your fault. It wasn't your fault, but it now is your fault because you're now an adult, so you have to take responsibility for it, regardless of the fact of whether you were conditioned right or not. It's like, well, as soon as you hit 18 years old, it's now your fault. But everything's your fault. And when you take that responsibility, you can actually free yourself from this bullshit. Because otherwise, you can never be free until you say everything is your fault. That's what I found in my life. I don't know. Is it similar for you?
Before I answer that question, I just want to tell everybody watching or listening to this podcast, if you do nothing else, just rewind that last 2 minutes, listen to what Frankie just said, and take that. It's beautifully put, man, in that we are all, until you have done the work to explore your personal history, your past is pulling the strings of your current behavior, beliefs, and communication to an extent that you don't even realize. And when I started to do inner child work, I got to that stuff late. I've always done like psychology and neuro-linguistic programming, cognitive behavioral therapy since an extraordinarily young age. But I'd never done the childhood stuff because there's a belief in personal development, which is like what happened in the past doesn't matter. You're creating right now and you create the future and fuck the past. And so that was my view of myself for a long time until I was probably like, I don't know, early 30s. And I had a friend that underwent an incredible transformation, like from alcohol addicted, drug addicted, to just being such a wise and conscious and evolved human being in like a matter of a couple of years. And her story and just connecting with her and talking with her really inspired me. And she said, Jack, until you do the childhood work, everything else is bullshit. And I think if anyone else had said that to me, I would have argued with them. But because of the example sitting in front of me, I was like, I can't not listen to that. And so I went on that endeavor. And when I went on that endeavor, to my current kind of level of thinking at the time was like, okay, I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to be able to critique me better. I'm going to be able to judge me more accurately, because I was still coming at it. And what I found was exactly what you just said, Frankie, which is when you start to you go back through your childhood and you don't spend years there, just do it, you can do it relatively swiftly. But you start to realize how things that happened or didn't happen in your childhood have unconsciously planted the seeds for what are now patterns in your life. And so the outcome for me wasn't like, I was able to more accurately critique myself. It was like, for the first time ever, I actually had compassion for myself. Because I was like, that's why I do that. That's why I'm that way. Oh, fuck, that's what's going on there. And when we talk about childhood work, often all it is reflecting and, whether you do it on A3 piece of paper or journals or with a therapist or whatever, is going through parts of your childhood and going, what did I pick up from that experience? And I picked up that I wasn't worthy, or I picked up that I have to be strong, or I picked up that I can't cry, or I picked up that men are evil or women are bad, or whatever it is. And then challenging that belief as your known adult self today. And often it's just bringing the conscious awareness to it, and that sort of takes you 80 to 90% of the way there, and you can then choose different beliefs and behaviors going forward. And so it's not as kind of dramatic as it sounds, and it's not as difficult as it sounds, but until you do it, your past is pulling the strings for who you are today.
There's so many men, especially that I've met in business, that could solve half the problems in their business and their life if they just gave themselves more love. And it was because of a lack of love in their childhood. That's why they're doing everything in their external reality right now. And that's why there's all the cars, all the obnoxious clothing, the jewelry and everything else. It's just because, they didn't feel that person when they were younger. And when you've seen it, and when you've also done some of the work that me and you have obviously done to get this mindset, you can't unsee it. You see it in everyone that you meet. And I'm not saying that me and you are saying that we're fully healed and there's no work left to do. I'm not saying that. But when you get to a certain level of, like, you've done the breath work, you've done the mentorship, you've done the relationship coaching, you've done all this, you look at some entrepreneurs that might have made 200 million, but their soul's destroyed and they're empty. They're an empty vessel that just want to go and buy lots of what I term as dumb shit because they just don't know what else to do with the money. I mean, have you met like a lot of successful, quote unquote, successful people like in your pursuit and mentorship where they're doing like tens and tens of millions, but they're just a vessel of themselves?
All the time. It's extraordinary to me how many people I come across that are worth hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars, and you wouldn't spend more than 5 minutes with them because, as you say, Frank, they're kind of a shell of themselves, and they'll tell you that they're not happy. They'll tell you that they're depressed and they're on antidepressants or sleep medication, or they've just gone through their third divorce, or whatever it is. I think that money is a really useful tool, and it's a really good thing to have. What I want to do is I want to build my capacity to give and receive love at the same rate that I build my ability to be creative, at the same rate that I create more wealth. And if we can do those things in relative harmony, then it's healthier.
How are you balancing it, though, Jack?
Oh, you just understanding that you need to work on yourself as much, if not more, than you do on your job and your career. It's like, friends often say to me, I had one friend of Panda's the other day, she said, Jack, you're the most driven person I've ever met. And I was genuinely surprised by that, because for me, it doesn't feel like drive. I just feel like I'm getting up every day and doing what I do. But, I suppose I'm either spending time with Panda and Ariella, or I'm reading, or I'm being coached, or I'm operating in business, or I'm coaching and speaking. Because that's just what I love doing. And so I spend as much time putting myself under the microscope and doing the hard, uncomfortable work as I do in my company or any person in my company.
If you were going to give the people listening to this right now the best, the ultimate best, like the place to start, because obviously everyone's listening to this right, I want to get into where do I start? What is the way? If we can get real granular with it and just give them a step-by-step process that you would implement right now for everyone who wants to get a sharper mind so they can go and achieve more in their business and their life and their relationships, what would it be?
Well, let me give you some books to read or listen to. The first book I would read or listen to is a book by Pia Mellody, so P-I-A Mellody, called Facing Codependence. Terrible title, but it's a book that helps us explore childhood and how it affects who we're showing up as today. I just released my latest book called Elevate, which is all about how to successfully and intelligently scale companies. So read Elevate. And then where I'm really showing up the most every single day and sharing what I'm reading, what I'm wrestling with, what I'm challenged by, what businesses I'm getting involved in, what events I'm running and where is Instagram. And so follow me on Instagram. It's just at Jack Delosa, Delosa. But if you just take those small incremental steps to get engaged, anybody listen to this, you're already following Frankie, right? So that's a huge step towards becoming the captain of your own destiny. And so taking these little steps, the further you go out into the future, the more exponential the difference becomes. Yeah,
I'd agree. I think putting the right information in your mind and just reiterate.
Yeah. To view yourself as a computer, and I don't mean that in a soulless sense, because I'm quite a kind of spiritual person, but when it comes, your brain right now is a computer that's running a bunch of programs. And if you don't like the reality that you see around you, you need to change your fucking operating system and upgrade your software. That's the only way. That's the only way to improve anything. It is all you. It's always been you. And so it's all about upgrading your own software and falling in love with that process so that you never stop doing it.
Do you meditate and do breath work and stuff like that to reprogram your mind?
I don't do breath work, but I do meditate, and I go through seasons. I'm going through a season right now where I'm not meditating as much as I usually would, but meditation. So I picked up meditation. I was going through an extremely challenging period in business in 2016-17, and I started meditating. And it was, so back then, 2018, 19, I'd meditate 20 minutes twice a day. And then on the Saturday, I'd sit there and meditate for 3 hours. And because there's just nothing else I would rather be doing in that season of my life. And it was incredibly powerful for me because it reduces stress, it increases compassion for self and others, it helps you sleep, it helps you make better decisions. Like, there isn't many silver bullets, but meditation is probably the closest to a silver bullet that you have. So, I highly recommend it, and I probably need to start doing more of it myself again.
What part of yourself do you find that you were trying to overcome in that period?
The business was in extreme distress. And so I was extremely stressed, unhappy, experiencing an ego death in fucking just about every aspect of life. Like, I was losing $500,000 a month. I was probably in $4 or $5 million worth of debt. I was being sued. I needed to go from 90 people to 40 people. Essentially, what happened is we became an accredited college because we wanted to offer diplomas and advanced diplomas in entrepreneurship. But we entered the space incredibly successly, and then we kind of really doubled down on it. And, we were expanding into Southeast Asia, and we were going to become a higher education provider, offering bachelor degrees and master degrees. Like, we were really going at it because I kind of got a sense that I could really make a difference to the quality of business education within the traditional education system. And then the government changed the regulations and essentially wiped out the industry, pointing everybody back to universities and TAFEs, away from private providers like the Entourage. And the regulation change happened overnight. Like, I literally learned about it on the front page of the newspaper, October the 1st, 2016. And so it sent the business into extreme distress. And you were extreme distress for probably 9 months, and then kind of climbing out of it for 4 years. And so what was meditation healing for me at the time? Everything.
Yeah. Well, just walk me through that, though. When you get a business that is driven in one direction like that, where you capitalize on perhaps government funding, you've got all this stuff, and then a massive pivot happens and you go into this extreme distress, you're losing $500,000 a month. What do you go in and do to make sure you turn that around? How do you find a new avenue to go down?
Yeah. So, I mean, practically we were lucky because we could return to our unaccredited roots, which is working with business owners to help them scale. And so, we're able to do that, which is who the Entourage is and who I think we were always meant to be. And I think the accredited stuff was a bit of a detour, to be honest. But then, how do you navigate distress? It's really just, there's a few things. The underlying thing is perseverance. It would have been so much easier for me to quit, and maybe more intelligent as well at the time. I mean, in hindsight now, we're in a really good position and things are succeeding again. But if you looked at my position on paper at the end of 2016, well, I was visiting administrators and liquidators, people that wind up company, and they all said the same thing. They said, Jack, you cannot trade out of this. Like raise the white flag, you guys are done. I was like, no, I'm not going to accept that reality. I don't know why I went and saw them in the first place, to be honest, because I wasn't going to listen to what they said anyway. But first thing is, waking is what I do is I say to myself, Jack, the next 6 months, 12 months, however long it's going to be, is going to fucking suck. You are going to enjoy very little of this. You're not going to see much of your family. At that point, I didn't have a family of my own, but, my brother had just had kids and all that kind of stuff. You're not going to have much fun. You're not going to even get much sleep. Is this something that you want to do? And again, as I said, as we were talking about before, that for people like us, there's no alternative. I'm not going to quit. And so it's kind of acceptance of the fact that you're going to go through something really difficult and that you're choosing that and that you kind of resign to that. And so happiness for that period of time or having fun, you just put it down the priorities list and you go, every day is going to be challenging and I'm just going to stay in the game. And then in a more practical sense, from a business perspective, the whole game is kick the can down the road. And so any money that's going out of the business needs to be delayed. Any money that's coming into the business needs to be accelerated. And so all you're trying to do, because you were operating in a loss position for a fairly long time. And so it's like, just keep the company alive. Let's say this is your cost base. Keep the company alive until you're back in profitability. And then when you're back in profitability, first the company's safe, but then you can start, paying back debts and whatever else. And so it's kick the company down the road to keep the company alive while you build it back to profitability. And that sounds like one job. It's two jobs. Keeping the company alive, i.e. managing the immediate cash crisis, and building a company back to profitability. And so that's two very separate and very distinct jobs and even roles. Because in one, you need to act like a warrior, because you're in wartime. But then when you're trying to lead a team and lead a business and brand yourself and market yourself back to a market, you need to be a leader, right? Not a warrior. And so, yeah, with great difficulty, we navigated, what became the hardest few years of my life, but it ultimately made us so much better in every which way. I don't want to go through it again, but there was a lot of gifts and lessons to be taken from it.
Well, there's actually a third job in there that you haven't mentioned, is the fact of once you get back to profitability as a business, you've now got all these debts and payments to pay back as well. Yeah.
And that's the other thing, man, is when so let's say end of 2016, I was probably in $4 or $5 million worth of debt, losing an extraordinary amount of money. Had I have wound up the company, everybody loses. Because we had bank debt, we had ATO debt, we had invoice factoring, I had investors. Everybody loses their money. Any customer that paid us money and is going through a program, they all lose that money, right? Any creditor doesn't get paid. And so everybody loses when you choose to wind a company up. From 2016, from that position, we repaid every dollar to every creditor. I mean, I still work with banks and stuff like that, but any debt that we've got today is healthy and is useful and is being deployed properly. But any bad debt or any creditors or anybody that we owed money through the 2016-17 train wreck, everybody got paid 100% of what they were owed.
And how many companies do you see fold up, leave the debt behind, and start up another PTY Limited the day after? It happens all the time.
I invested in a recruitment business. It was probably like 2014, and again, lesson for me. We spoke before about picking on partner in relationships. This was obviously not a business that I should have invested in. But what happened in that instance is she got a $25,000 unexpected tax bill. She came and saw me, and I said, "It's fine. This happens every day. Like, just do this, communicate this, put it on a payment plan, rock and roll." Now I found out a few days later that she wound up the company, and it's like, really, a $25K tax bill in business, unexpected? That's called Tuesday. And like, business is hard. Like, this isn't easy. And so, we all talk about entrepreneurs, we take risks. Sure. What I'm more interested in is, who the fuck do you become when the risk doesn't turn out the way you want it to? And how much fortitude and perseverance do you have to navigate those seasons? Because that's more important. And so, yeah, unfortunately, I think a lot of people think that they have a desire that's like a 10 out of 10, but it's actually a 2 out of 10. And if you want to be successful in any field, it's hard. It requires sacrifice. It requires you to endure extended periods of discomfort and sometimes extreme pain. And if you're a 2 or a 3 out of 10, you're going to quit. So either work on getting yourself to a 10 out of 10 or just quit now.
Do you think you have to have passion for the business that you're into in order to make it successful?
You need to have passion, whether it's passion for what the business does or whether it's passion for business and whatever the business does is kind of secondary to you. You need to be all in and you need to be thoroughly engaged, because if you're not, you'll give up. It's the same as your relationship. It's the same as health and nutrition.
Can people get by with just a passion for money? Because I've met a lot of people that just have a passion for just making money.
Yeah.
So can they get on with that?
100%. We spoke before about people worth hundreds of millions of dollars or billions of dollars. Clearly got a lot of money. But if that's all you have a passion for, you're probably going to be pretty fucking miserable in every other area of life, which means you're probably going to be pretty fucking miserable full stop. You're rich and miserable. And there's nothing more pathetic than being rich and miserable, right? And so it's like, you know, if somebody's ripped and got a six-pack, great. But show me someone that's ripped and got a six-pack, who's building businesses, who has a loving and connected relationship, that's an incredible father. I respect that guy. Right.
Yeah.
I respect that guy way more than the $400 million dude that's depressed and a shell of himself.
Yeah, I agree with you on all levels. I think health comes before everything. I wouldn't make any money in life if I didn't have my health. You know, so I look after the vehicle. The gym comes first before anything. You know, because at the end of the day, if you can't put your health first, there's no point even getting up in the morning, in my opinion. But when it comes down to it, obviously you just moved out to Miami. Now you've blown it up 12, 14 years in Australia, done really well there. What was the pivot? Why now? Because you're successful in Australia as an entrepreneur, you're well known, you've got a good audience there, everything's going well for you. Why do you want to pivot now?
It feels expansive. I think that, one of the statistics I looked at last week was there's 33 million businesses in America. There are more businesses in America than there are human beings in Australia. And don't get me wrong, that's not throwing shade on Australia. Australia will continue to be our home for all intents and purposes. We'll live in America, but, you know, Australia's still home. What I do commercially in America, we will be able to operationalize 90% from Australia, so we'll still be headquartered in Australia. It's expansive. It's the next horizon for Panda and I. And so it's really that simple. And I wouldn't do it if I thought our growth in Australia would be compromised or the quality of the businesses that we're building in Australia would be compromised. It's all additive and it's all synergistic. And so I think anything we do here complements everything we do back in Australia and helps everything and everyone elevate.
But talking to how wild it is in Miami, like for business and entrepreneurship, because when I went out there myself, to me, it's like then I didn't realize, like, people talk to me about Dubai and they talk about all these places, and obviously I've got residency in Dubai, and Dubai is beautiful, great, but America to me is just uncapped potential. You land there and you could just make money, in my opinion.
100%. And I mean, we're brand new at the moment. We're coming back to Australia for a couple of months to do some business stuff and get married, and then we'll come back to Miami at the end of October. And so we're brand new. But yeah, Miami's becoming the financial capital of this country, if not the world. The business here is, like, the business landscape here is incredible. And then the American market is as you say, it's so large that it's uncapped. And so I think for Australian founders, or founders in any country, if you've built something great, continue to make it great in its homeland, but think about where can you expand it on an international basis to make it even bigger and to make it even better. I think people of our generation, Frankie, we still, whether we'd like to admit it, and I probably don't include you in this statement. I think you've broken past this one, but I know I'm still guilty of it at times. we still think in terms of our own country. And the world today is such a small place. Like the world is a country today. And so that's really exciting for business owners or even adventurers that just want to get out and do stuff. Think of the planet as your home and take away any boundaries that might be around state lines or country lines, and think about how you can think and operate more globally. It's an incredibly fun and exciting paradigm through which to view your life and the world.
It's right what you say, Jack, because the other day, you're in Miami right now. I'm in Marbella. I'm in a house with one entrepreneur's doing 5-10 million a year, and another entrepreneur's got a business worth £100 million. So to put it into context, and these guys have both been on my podcast. It's just when you travel the world, podcasts and talking. Hopefully, one day I'll sit in your Miami penthouse because we'll have a relationship. I'll come sit down. I'm going to learn some stuff about you that you're going to teach me some things that I just don't know about life. And that's the beauty of being autonomous and being able to just get on the plane, put the podcast gear, a couple of suitcases, and just being able to do right, go here, go here, go here. That is the kind of life that I want to live until such a point as I find the exact place that I should be in and call it a home. Me personally, though, I want to talk into this with you because you can articulate this so well. You've obviously made a lot of money and had a lot of businesses in Australia. There's a lot of talk at the moment about this tax-free life. People are advertising, set up in the Cook Islands, set up in Dubai, set up here, there, everywhere else. As an entrepreneur, should an entrepreneur be optimizing for taxes, or should they just be optimizing to build in the best location that they can and just pay the taxes that they should pay?
In my view, definitely the latter. Again, moving somewhere purely for tax advantage never appealed to me because there's just so many things that are more important, like the culture and the country or the state. And for me, I love summer and I love beaches and I love good people. And so it's really a personal preference, personal values kind of thing. But like minimizing tax for me, any human, it should be important. You don't want to be donating extra because they're not spending it well enough that we should be donating extra. But for me, it's like 8 or 9. It doesn't even really come into my consciousness. What I would say is that if you look at somewhere like America, for example, there are definitely states that have become incredibly cumbersome with anti-business laws and regulations. In many instances, anti-parent laws and regulations. And where taxes are ridiculous, like ridiculously high. And so while I wouldn't move somewhere for tax advantage, I would be prohibited from moving somewhere because the taxes are fucking stupid. California is
like New York.
New York and California. Like I fail to understand how the politicians can be so unaware and so unaware to even put taxes and regulations like this in place in the first place. But then when you see a mass exodus from the state of California to Texas to Florida, how that doesn't start to demonstrate to you that you've got it wrong from a regulation and a taxation and even how you handle crime and all. It's really sad and disappointing to see, because if I moved to America 15 years ago, I probably would have moved to LA, but it's not what it used to be. And I'm not an American, and so I can only sort of talk about it from an observational perspective. But I've got a lot of friends that are American, and I've connected with a lot of entrepreneurs that are American, and they don't want to live in LA anymore.
Yeah, when I went to LA, I thought I had this vision in my mind of how LA would be, and it's not that anymore. Because of the crime, because of the stuff that's happening on the streets. So I can't even mention some of the stuff that I saw on the streets on this podcast because it's soul destroying. But that's kind of like what you're saying. Don't pick a place for just the taxes, but I just think the American market, going to Florida's great. I've not been to Texas, but I've heard great things about it. I've heard Las Vegas and Nevada can be good as well in some areas. So I think there's I think when it comes to like a lot of young entrepreneurs out there, I just think you should pick the location where you can build the biggest thing. Ultimately, I think America is that place.
Where you can pick the biggest thing and enjoy the lifestyle doing it, right? And so, I mean, for me, it's I want to live in a great culture with great people. And it's like, as silly as it sounds, I just know myself. I love sound. I love pictures. Now, I spend most of my time working, but as we sit here, I that's the view. Yeah. So, for those of you that are listening to the podcast, I'm overlooking a beach and palm trees and water, and I don't know. Again, I know it probably sounds stupid, but that helps bring me happiness and peace and enjoy it. And so, yeah, I think it's where you can build something big and enjoy the lifestyle that you're living.
Yeah, to me, it seems pointless even trying to make money if you're not going to live the life. Like if I was sat in Italy right now, trying to do this podcast, I'm not going to be vibing the same vibration, and I got this morning, I went to the Real Paddle Club in Marbella. I've done the gym already. I'm hyped. So now we're going to get out to this. You're sat in Miami. I'm sat in Marbella. And both got the sun come through the window. How can you not bring better energy to a podcast when you're in an environment like that? Yeah. And I try to tell people, like, when you change your location, it changes your life. It's the biggest thing you can do to change your life. I have this personal opinion that you should not be where you grew up. Because there's all these, we talked earlier about the triggers and the things that bring these things out of you, in relationships and business. But a lot of those triggers are actually held within the location where you grew up as well, energetically. Mm. So in order for you to break the patterns, which is what you've said, you need to break in order to ascend in business, life, relationships, it would be a good idea to go away from your location to do that. And it happened for me. When I moved from the UK, in Cambridgeshire to Australia, that's what allowed me to break patterns, which is why I'm living the life that I'm living right now. I would not be living this life if I hadn't have been taking myself out of that crucial environment. Wow. And what I see for you, Jack, is like now with you living in Miami with Amanda and that, I just see a whole different level of game coming for you, because how could you not be thinking hundreds of millions and billions in that location compared to Australia? How could you not?
Exactly.
Quick one for you guys. You may have seen I've started to mentor people because I was getting people in the DMs reaching out, asking me for loads of different advice and guidance through many realms of what I've been through in my life. And I've created a mentorship program now that helps you create the reality that you want to live. It helps you make more money, on average an extra 30 to 100K there is that's lying within your business that you don't know where it is or how to access it. I help people access that, and I also help them get every other area of their life right so they can improve their relationships, so they can improve the way they communicate, the way they network, and everything else. We work on the whole package. It's not just one area. We're not just in the pursuit of money, but we're in the pursuit of the purpose and the money, and aligning it all together so that you go in the right direction to being the best version of yourself. If that is something that resonates with you on every level of your being, and you want to work with me to take yourself to the next level, I would love you to click the link below this video and go to my mentorship page and make an inquiry.
Just to come back to the point you were making before that, I really resonate with everything that you just said, because for me, I find familiarity to be slightly uninspiring. And that's not to say that I'm always seeking new, because that's not a good strategy either. But the more I could be expanding horizons, it tends to be the happier I am. And I think what happens to all of us, as you say, Frankie, not kind of living where you grew up, is when somewhere becomes that familiar, you start to replace your perception with your memory. Meaning you don't see the thing anymore. You see your memory of the thing, whether that's a street, a building, a city, a person, or whatever, right? And so whether it's travel, whether it's moving for good, whether it's just expanding your horizon, even if it's not geographically, you just start doing more or operating at a bigger level. you start to see things with new eyes and fresh eyes again. And that's an incredibly empowering thing to experience.
Yeah, and you also have gratitude. Like I have gratitude for like my parents being married for so long, and and they're been in a relationship for like 45 years. All this kind of stuff that I didn't even see when I was living there in that bubble. You don't even see it. I speak to my mum more. Yeah, I speak to her more now on the phone and communicate with her way more than if I was living next door to her or 10 miles down the road. So it's crucial that you just take yourself out of that environment, even if it's just for a few months or a month, just so you can get some optics on what you should actually be doing. Because I don't know if you've ever been through this, Jack, but I've been through many situations in life where I've felt like I wanted to achieve certain things. And when I've gone to achieve it, I've realised when I've climbed the ladder, that my ladder was led against the wrong wall. Like, is there incidences in your life where you've climbed the ladder of so-called success, but then you found out of lent it against the wrong wall here?
I think MBE was a little bit like that. I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I needed the education that, I needed the development program that it offered me at that age. I was like very early 20s. I think that's one of the reasons I'm so passionate about the Entourage is I love what we do. And as I said before, it's the engine for, I can build businesses around it. I can build communities around it. I can go anywhere in the world. But the heartbeat and the essence of who we are, I really, really love it. And so I think everything leading up to that was purely, the purpose of it was purely developmental to get me to a point where I could have fun doing what I enjoy.
I just want to go into a few different tactics from you because I want to give people the essence of your value right now. Give me a tactic or a strategy to shorten the sales cycle in business, because I want everyone on here to be able to shorten their sales cycle so they can bring in more cash as fast as possible so they can make more money.
The main thing is that most businesses are operating without any sales process in place. And what I mean by that is inquiry comes in, lead comes in, and whether it's the founder is just kind of, let's assume you sell through conversation, right? Founder's often the best salesperson in the business, not always, but often. And they kind of just do it intuitively, and they've done it 1,000 times. And when they say something, it works, they say it again. When they say something doesn't work, they don't say it again. When they ask a question and get a good response, they ask it again. When they ask something and it doesn't work, they don't ask it. So there's this intuition, but then there's also this iterative process of improvement that occurs over time where they're kind of operating intuitively. And then if you start to build out a sales team and you've got 2, 3, 4, 10, 20, 50 people all selling intuitively and according to their own preference, it becomes a nightmare. It's completely unmanageable. It's completely unscalable. And so what we mean when we talk about have a sales process is, what are the macro steps that you take somebody through to move them from curious to committed? What are the steps that you take them through from moving from lead to customer? And then within those, what do we say when we answer the phone? What do we say when we enter a discovery session or a longer sales consultation? What are the questions we ask? How do we tour our products or services? What a sales process should be is a distillation of best practice for how to help somebody remove the barriers that might prevent them from buying, and to help them to take ownership of the decision to ultimately buy if they're the right person for the product or the service. And so the fastest, like, I'll give you an example, Frankie. We're working with a client of ours in Elevate, really successful web development, web design, web optimization company. And so they would essentially help businesses to generate more leads through the website. Now, they would get a lead or they would get a phone call, and they didn't have a sales process, as most businesses don't. And so they'd call the lead and the conversation would be something like, hi, I saw your inquiry come through, just wanted to check in to see what you're after. Oh, okay, great. Yeah, we can, I think we can do that. Do you want to come out to me, or should I come out to you? Or like, I'm free today, I'm free tomorrow, I'm free the day after that. Do you want me to come to your, and it becomes this awkward, like, not a compelling conversation, and the whether it's the CEO or the salesperson aren't offering any leadership to the prospect, and prospects don't want to be sold to, but they do need to be led. And so by having a sales process, you're able to get somebody on the phone and go, hey, Frankie, thanks so much for reaching out. Quick question, why us? Why now? Why did you reach out to us? And what was it about us? And what makes this a now conversation? And so immediately we're eliciting needs. Okay, brilliant. You're definitely in the right place. Let me tell you the process that we go through with people like you in order to determine best fits, that we can build something that's tailored to you. Firstly, what we're going to do is we're going to get an understanding of where you are right now and what are your current conversion rates. Secondly, we're going to get an understanding of where you want to go and what kind of targets you've got over the next 12 months. And then thirdly, we'll start to put together a tailored roadmap and tailored strategy exactly for you that's going to bridge the gap from your current conversions to where you want to get in your conversions. So let's start by telling me what's currently going on in your business. What are the current conversions from your current website? You're 30 seconds into the call, but now the prospect is going, finally, somebody that's got a process, finally somebody that's a professional, and finally somebody that can lead me. I can relax because I know I'm in safe hands. And then you move them through a process that is strategically designed to elicit everything that you need to elicit, to remove any objections that might come up, prevent any objections that might come up later, and to help them make the decisions that they need to in order to buy quickly. And so for this web developer, designer, optimizer dude, he went from a sales cycle of 3 months. It used to take him 3 months from lead until someone became a customer. He now gets it done in 10 days. And so you can imagine if previously it took you 3 months to win a client and now it takes you 10 days, the increase in velocity of sales and the increase in velocity of revenue is astronomical. And we didn't change anything. We didn't spend more money on marketing. We didn't spend more money on, we are now, but we didn't need to do any of that. All it was bottling best practice to understand how do we move customers through a buying process and give them the leadership that they're seeking.
Yeah, velocity and throughput of a business is the fastest way to obviously increase your revenue other than acquisition of another company, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, at what point does a company know whether it should acquire another company to boost its sales? Because I was speaking to Jeremy Harbour on the podcast, and he's a top investor. And he said when he was in telecoms, once he learned about acquisition entrepreneurship, he couldn't unsee it. He literally said he bought like 2 years worth of revenue in a day for a marginal amount of money down compared to what it would cost him to go and scan it with his own ads. And he's like, right, now I've just got to acquire every other telecoms company because this is the fastest way to grow a business. There's no point going out buying the customers. We can just buy them off this other business. I mean, walk me through this, because I know that you get this on a different level than I get it, but just walk me through this.
Yeah, acquisitive growth can definitely be a great accelerant. If you understand that the vast majority of businesses out there aren't in great shape, and they're definitely not optimized to maximize the value of the business, then you can probably buy them for 2 to 3 times their profit. So let's say you go and find a business that's doing, you scale these numbers up or down depending on one's world, but let's say you find a business that's doing 500 per profit, and it's not being run well. They've got a great product or service or team or all of the above, but they're not doing marketing. As we spoke about before, they haven't optimized their sales process, haven't built out their sales team. It's like what we spoke about before, Frankie, with humans going through life unconsciously. That's what businesses do. They've just been doing the same shit for 5, 10, 20 years without bringing any conscious or strategic thought. And so you go into this business, it's doing 3 million revenue and 500K in profit, and you buy them for 3 times profit. Let's say you buy them for 1.5. Now, even just putting down that 1.5, you might give them 500K, you might raise 500K in debt from the bank, and then you might vendor finance the last 500K, meaning you'll pay it to the previous owner over a period of 2 years, right? And so really you've only put 500K down, but you've acquired a business that's doing 500K profit. So you're going to get your money back in the first year if you do nothing. But then let's say you're somebody that has engaged in coaches, and you do have a strategy, and you do understand how to identify the constraints in a business at any given moment, and you do understand how to make good moves, and you understand how to build a team, you understand how to layer over a bit of marketing and increase sales conversions. It's not out of the question to think that you can make that. You've just bought the business doing 500K profit. You can probably make that 500K $1 million profit maybe in your first year. And so now you've got an asset that's producing $1 million profit on an annual basis. It really only cost you $500K because the other $500K came from the bank, and the third $500K you cash flowed out of the profits of the business that you just bought. And you've added an extra $1 million in bottom line to your business. And so, as I said, you can scale those numbers up or down. You could do it at a business profiting $100K. You could do it for a business profiting $100 million. But the principles and the base economics are the same. And so for the right businesses and the right entrepreneurs in the right markets, it can be a really good accelerant.
What are some of the markets that you see this being a prime accelerant right now?
I think it's probably got more to do with the entrepreneur, meaning, you know, you do need to be pretty skilled as an entrepreneur. Not necessarily, I mean, to do the deal, yes, but more so to ensure that you, like, after we bought the business, are we integrating it or are we keeping them separate? And if we're integrating, meaning we're taking the business that we just bought and we're integrating it with our core code, you need to be a good leader of people. You need to be a good assessor of people. You need to get deep into the P&L and work out where your cost synergies. You need to have a high EQ to understand how that's going to shake up the culture and the politics of the place, because it will. Or you're going to keep them separate, in which case you're going to have two businesses or two brands now, which is going to require more output. And so if you're an entrepreneur who's looking to challenge yourself, and because it's not...
Guys, I don't ask you for much, but today I'm asking you for a solid favor. If you are getting value out of this conversation, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. It lets me know that we're making the right content and it's hitting your eyes at the right time.
There's no go faster button that's easy, right? Acquisitions are a go faster button, but you need to be hungry. You need to be 3 steps ahead. You need to be learning. You need to understand that challenges are going to present themselves that you don't even know of yet. And so if you're up for all of that, if you're on the move, if you're on the up as a human, as an entrepreneur, then you want to do it. If you kind of just want to cruise, it's probably not for you because it's going to shake things up for a year or two.
Well, when you acquire a business, you buy their cash flow and you buy their customers, all that good stuff, which sounds all great and woo-woo. But what you're also buying is you're buying all of their bottlenecks. And if you've got to merge that company with this one over here, you're buying those bottlenecks, and you don't know where those bottlenecks are right now because you've not looked at it in the depth that you're telling people to look at it. When you start putting those things together, it doesn't work, and then you can end up with an even bigger problem. You could actually send yourself under. I've seen people send themselves under by acquiring companies as well.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
It's about knowing what to acquire and how to acquire it, and to make sure it's in the right shape to acquire it before you go merge it. I get completely
100%. And you want to look for a business that's doing well despite itself. It's like you've got a really great web development business, whatever, and you see this other web development, and they're profitable, but you've got a killer sales process and they don't. You understand how to market and acquire customers, and they're not doing any of that. You've understood, you've used technology to shave 15, 20% of your cost base. They haven't done that yet. And so you look at that business and you go, it's profitable, it's relatively consistent, and they haven't done any of the cool shit that I've done over here. And then it's like, okay, cool. Do you have the energy to double your size right now? And all of the growth and all of the challenges that come with that. And so, as I said, if you're on the up and you're up for the challenge, incredible. But if you like to coast, then continue to coast.
And what you're essentially saying is work within your window of competence. Whatever your window of competence is, where your skills sit, then you want to acquire within that window. Because if you acquire us on that window, this is where all the problems and all the issues that you're saying come out of the business.
Yeah. I start to get more nervous when we start to talk about acquiring businesses we aren't familiar with. Again, it can be done. it either needs to come with great people or you need to put great people in there. But, as entrepreneurs, we at some level, you just start working through other people, right? And so it absolutely can be done. It's just that the risk is greater. And so your level of obsession needs to be even greater, and your attention to detail needs to deepen.
Yeah. And what's your views on businesses these days? Because obviously people out there are saying, some people say build a cash flow lifestyle business. I think everything nowadays should be built to sell from day one. That's my opinion. What's your opinion on that?
I think it's personal preference, right? I think it's there's such a broad spectrum these days of what's possible in entrepreneurship. And so there's people that they just want to make a couple of $100,000 a year in profit and live a nomadic lifestyle and spend a lot of time in Bali and, spend heaps of time with their family. And that lights them up. And so it's like fucking awesome. And then on the other spectrum, on the other end of the spectrum, you've got people like Michael Rubin, for example. Michael, I think he's 50. This guy's an incredible American entrepreneur. He owns Fanatic, so he owns all of the rights to sell all the merchandise for the NFL, the NHL, the NBA. This guy was doing $100 million revenue and $10 million profit at 21 years of age. He's worth 11.5.
That's mental.
And he's obviously an exceptional entrepreneur. All he's ever been good at is business and work. He was terrible in school. He's terrible at everything. All he wants to do is work. And he still goes to bed some nights and he's dizzy because of how hard that he asked himself, he's like, why do I keep doing this to myself? And the answer is he fucking loves it. And so just like the person in Bali making $200K loves it. Now, my world is kind of an interesting blend of the two in that the entourage has become a sizable asset in and of itself, but it's not necessarily something that I'm looking to sell in the near future. However, it does give me the opportunity to either start adjacent businesses, start, scale, and exit, which we've done a couple of times, Entourage Accounting and Advisory and the larger consulting firm called Entourage Beanstalk. And it also gives me opportunity to invest in other businesses or acquire other businesses and maybe build and exit, the satellites that are around the entourage. And so I'm probably more, I'm not the, sit in Bali, kind of relax kind of a person. I'm probably more let's build something substantial. But in the case of the entourage, it's not necessarily for the sake of exit. It's more for the sake of scale and impact. Because the work that we do is truly meaningful to my team and I. But then it also gives rise to other business opportunities that you can start, build, and sell.
Yeah, you're essentially incubating exitable assets is what you're doing from day one, and you've got your own marketing team and everything else, sales and all the processes all there mapped out. So yes, this business is a nice cash flow business, makes a lot of revenue, but it's like your real exitable value comes from the assets that are built from the structure that you have at the entourage. Exactly. Yeah, I love it. I'd love to ask this question when I need this podcast, because it really allows us to contextualize this conversation, Jack. But if there's one pearl of wisdom, if you can't leave the world with anything else, but you could just leave one pearl of wisdom for everyone that listens to this podcast today that can take their life 1% forward from now, what would it be?
Find out where you're upper limiting yourself. We all operate within a thermostat of what's comfortable for us. If we get too happy, we start to self-sabotage to bring ourselves back to the thermostat area of where we're comfortable. If we get too unhappy, we start to do good stuff to bring ourselves back into our happy medium. And so that also goes for money. If you start to make more money than you think you're worthy of, you start to upper limit yourself and you'll reduce the amount of income you develop. If you're in a relationship that's better and more loving and more fulfilling than what you feel you deserve or what you feel capable of sustaining, you'll sabotage the relationship. And so it comes back to the book I spoke about at the beginning called The Big Leap. and it's front of mind because I'm reading it at the moment, which is all about identifying where you're upper limiting yourself and removing those upper limits so that you can take the big leap into your zone of genius and become the best version that you can be.
Yeah, I love that because you're so right on everything you just said there. You cap yourself out all them.
Yeah.
With relationships, like
We're doing.
yeah, 100%, and I've seen this so evident in my own life in all areas that I can't unsee it. So, guys, do me a solid favor, dial in, and I'll put Jack's details with his business and his Instagram and everything else you can follow along under this podcast. But dial into this podcast, share it with all your friends, and I appreciate every single one of you listening right now. And Jack, thank you so much.
Legend, Frankie. Thanks for having me, brother. I really enjoyed it.
If you thought that video was good, why don't you press this one here? Go on, give that a little tickle.